We are. I do believe. I do believe we are live. You know how it goes. I always have to figure it out every time, but I think we are here. Um, Everybody, welcome back to Evening Skews. Today is Thursday, July 30th. I'm Trae Crowder. Uh, with me, as always, is Mr. Mark A.G. Mark, how are you doing today, buddy?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. As you all know, we always like to start out here on Evening Skews with whatever is dumb in America on that given day. There's always a lot to choose from, and for today, what better source than our dipshit in chief? As I'm sure all of you have seen by now, earlier today during his multiple times daily rambling, nigh incoherent Twitter tirade that have become the hallmarks of the Trump presidency, Donald Trump cast doubt on the legitimacy of the upcoming federal election this November. But he didn't stop at casting doubt on it. He took it a step further. So Trump tweeted, with universal mail-in voting, parentheses, not absentee voting, which is good, close parentheses, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. And here's the kicker, Mark. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. 3 question marks. And I figured 3 question marks is the appropriate amount in his mind to give him plausible deniability when someone asks him if he openly suggested we should delay the election or not. No, he's just opening up for a conversation. Maybe we should maybe talk about thinking about delaying the election. Maybe 3 question marks.
Yeah, it's Mr. President just asking questions here. No, not saying anything. Yeah,
just asking questions. But as it should have, this set the American political landscape afire for much of the day. Later in the day, he didn't walk it back. He just sort of like waffled even more so by saying, I don't want to delay. I'm just worried about the election, you know. But as many people have pointed out since he broached the subject, that the American president does not have the power or authority to delay the election. That would have to come from Congress, and one half of our Congress is the U.S. House of Representatives, controlled at present by the Democrats, who are never going to allow that to happen. But further, even if they did delay the election, still, Trump's current term as president would expire on January 21st, 2020, or 23rd, or Inauguration Day, 2021. His term as president would expire no matter what hypothetically happened with delaying the election. And a fun little fact about that, if that came to pass, according to the Constitution, Nancy Pelosi would become the acting president of the United States. So I highly doubt they're going to allow that to happen either. And to avoid that eventuality would require a full-on constitutional amendment, which is completely out of the realm of possibility. So put simply, this is not a thing that he can make happen, regardless of how many question marks or how much doubt he has about the legitimacy of the election. He can't do this whether he wants to or not.
Here's how stupid I am. I don't even understand how Congress could delay it. I thought the Constitution set the date for the election. And even then, it's like it's 50 separate elections run by the states and run by various counties. Like, I'm not even sure what would happen if like the California Secretary of State said we're voting and then Tennessee's didn't.
Right.
It's like, I think the Constitution says a plurality of electoral college votes, which is 270 if everybody votes. But if some states don't submit electors, doesn't that mean you just have to win California's electoral votes? And then the House of Representatives certifies the election results, so they could just certify it. It's a perfect Trump idea because it's stupid, it's fascist, and it probably ensures he would lose. So I don't really understand the point, or he was just thinking out loud. But like we elected the guy at the end of the bar drinking alone president. So we get these kind of ideas. He just floats like you sit in a bar and a guy at a corner, like the news is on. He goes like, I tell you what I do about the Middle East, blow them up. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure, man, whatever. And that would solve I'm sure somebody's thought of that.
Right.
It's like, so we just get these kind of ideas. There's one sentence sort of ideas that the problems are always easy to solve. It's just nobody wants to do it, which isn't true. I mean, like, he's not wrong. There's a lot. I mean, he is wrong, but I'm saying, like, there are a lot of problems with mail voting. Mail votes get tossed out a lot more, and I'm not sure why. I'm sure part of that's probably the advocates parties have it at polls know, the Republicans know that more Democrats vote by mail, so they're probably harsher looking at those. I don't know. I don't have a solution. But
let me ask you this, Mark. What is, because he went out of his way to explicitly delineate between mail-in voting and absentee voting in this very tweet. Like I said, he calls out mail-in voting, but then specifies that he was not talking about absentee voting, and went on to say, it's good. What is the difference in his rationale between the two? Like, it's just that it's on a much larger scale, like absentee voting is a smaller segment typically versus having everybody vote by mail-in ballot, or what does he think? How does he think that works?
Well, some states have where you can do absentee ballot with no cause. You can just decide to vote by mail and do it.
Yeah.
Which is what he's afraid of. But like actual absentee voting where you have a reason is probably because you live in a different state than you're voting in. So it's the rich people with third houses is who he's saying should still be allowed to vote in the military.
Right. Okay.
So
that checks out. But, this is happening at the same time. We talked on a previous episode. This is happening at the same time as his assault on the Postal Service, right? So he's sort of coming at the election from all different angles right now. Also, his campaign and Donald Trump's super PACs have just halted all spending on campaign ads in the state of Michigan. Saying all that just to say, this is all just because he's reeling from the likelihood of losing, right? Like, that's what this is. He sees what's on the horizon and is frantically flailing about trying to do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know why he. I mean, look, the guy's lazy. He's never held a job, and I doubt he wants to keep doing this one. That's the whole problem. Like, the whole thing's running on autopilot for 3.5 years, but then COVID actually required him to do stuff, and he just decided not to do it. And here we are. Yeah. I don't know. It's utterly bizarre.
Even a lot of Republicans have dismissed the very notion of moving the election, pointing out that that's literally never happened in the history of America. When the Civil War was going on, we held the election on time. So even a lot of conservatives, including, the chief turtle in charge over there, Mitch McConnell, have come out and said and dismissed the idea of even doing that. So he seems to have no real support for this either. And this is like you said, it's the guy sitting at the bar at the end of the night, just like postulating about what he would do, except he's, he's the leader of the free world or whatever. So it feels differently. But what I'm trying to say is there's no support or backup for this notion at all, even on his side. But yet he still just throws it out there anyway. There's no keeping him in check at all, and never has been.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if some of them got to be thinking by now that, like, man, we want to still be here after he's gone, and we don't want to, God forbid, we have to get a real job.
Right.
These guys, they fear getting a job more than anyone I've ever seen in my entire life. These guys will throw their mom into a wood chipper to stay in Congress. It's amazing. It must be an amazing gig.
Back in March or April, Joe Biden said, mark my words, he's going to try to delay this election. And when Joe Biden said that publicly, he got skewered from a lot of different directions from people. The Washington Post had an op-ed about it, talking about, it said Joe Biden has suggested that Donald Trump might want to delay the election. Joe Biden should know better. Calling it a low blow, and that even raising the possibility of that reflected poorly on him. And even Trump wouldn't stoop that low and things like that. There was a lot of that kind of chatter after Biden said that a few months ago, and now here we are.
You gotta love calling people out for too harsh rhetoric in the Trump era.
I know. Exactly. Like
the second thing is like, why is that out of bounds?
Right.
That's my favorite move in politics. When somebody pretends to be offended, they all pretend to be offended all the time. It's just like, how dare my opponent slander me with such language? It's like, come on, man. He's trying to win an election just like you are. He's going to say mean stuff. Everybody can grow up, move on. Yeah.
So despite all of this, we very likely are still going to have our election on November 3rd. I mean, the whole world could just end before then at this rate. But barring that, we are going to have the election. I've seen people on the left posting online trying to, I guess, raise awareness or point out to people, like, if you're in a mail-in state or you're doing mail-in voting, then make sure you do it early because of all this fuckery we mentioned earlier with the Postal Service and things like that. And I don't know about the legitimacy of, or how much any of that would matter. I know I didn't get my mail-in ballot, but I got the sort of pre-ballot here in California, and it said it had to be postmarked by Election Day. So knowing me, that's probably how it'll go. But either way, I just want everyone to send them in one way or another. Just get it done is all that matters.
Vote your ass off. Remember that a couple years ago?
No, no, I don't. Oss, who was Oss?
Ossoff. There's a guy named Ossoff.
Oh, Ossoff. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one. He's trying hard. So, on the other end of the spectrum, completely, while Trump was deliberately attacking our presidential election, his predecessor, Barack Obama, was talking about the importance of the election when during his eulogy for the late Congressman John Lewis. But that's not all Obama had to say. He had quite a bit to say at the eulogy today. So, Mark, you want to take us through this one a little bit?
Well, he rightfully talked a lot about how brave John Lewis was and how young he was when they took on this fight and how he almost died several times. And how fighting for the right to vote was the cause of his life. And somebody online, it was kind of a beautiful thought, said that, like, if you think of the America not actually becoming a full democracy till mid 60s, and maybe it's still not, like John Lewis is a founding father, kind of think about it that way,
right? And
it should be thought of as such. But Obama also listed concrete stuff we could do to honor John Lewis, like making Election Day a national holiday, reestablishing the Voting Rights Act, and the big ones were adding DC and Puerto Rico as states and getting rid of the nuking the filibuster in the Senate. And I like all those ideas. And I don't understand. It's so funny to me to live in a country where only one party wants power. Like, right. Could have made DC and Puerto Rico states. The only reason North Dakota and South Dakota are two separate states is because the Republicans wanted to run up their Senate majority in the 1800s or whenever they were admitted. It's like this is in, like, it's not out of bounds or unconstitutional. It's normal political. It's constitutional to try to expand your power base within the rules. Those are the rules. You can admit them as states and you get 2 more votes. So I know with Puerto Rico it's a little more complicated because they keep voting to not be a state. I'm not sure we can make them a state against their will, but no reason American Samoa can't be a state. Make American Samoa 8 different states. Who gives a shit? Well, like, it's in the rules. Play by the rules and win.
Yeah. My man stepping back up to the plate. Lord, I've missed him. But yeah, it's always good to hear from Obama, but also just to me, the stark contrast between the two things, between the bullshit that Trump was up to today, because that's the thing. Also, Trump was, of course, absent from this funeral. And that's becoming a trend with Trump. He doesn't, for a long time in American politics, the differences between the sides has typically been put aside whenever a prominent figure on either side passes away. They all have tended to, in the past, show the respect, show up at the funeral, that type of thing. And, George Bush was at the funeral today, plenty of other Republicans. But Donald Trump, he don't play that. He very famously skipped John McCain's funeral, you know, his arch nemesis on the right, and then he skipped Lewis's funeral today too. Now, that part of me, and I ain't in this world. I don't know none of these people or whatever, but like, I can't imagine anybody who's close to John Lewis or cared about him really gives too much of a shit that Donald Trump wasn't there. You know what I mean? I would imagine.
No, I mean, it would have
he
been
kind of just besmirches the occasion with his presence in a way, but that doesn't make his decision to turn his nose up at the proceedings any less shitty, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's just I mean, I'm trying, it would have been way worse if he'd went, but like when people complain about him not going or saying what a scumbag he is for not going, it's like, what you're doing is you're wishing we had a normal president who could play by the rules of fake civility and like do that, you know, in the mafia, when you kill somebody, you still go to the funeral and kiss his mom on the cheek, like that kind of stuff. Like, we expect our leaders to do that kind of stuff, and he just can't. I mean, in one sense, it's a little refreshing to not be that he doesn't have the mental power to focus long enough to be a hypocrite, but it's a little weird.
But anyway, the stark contrast between the two, between what Trump was up to and what was going on here, and it's one of those things where, like, because at this point, yes, the Nazis are back. Overt white supremacy again has a place at the table on the right in America politically. That is true, but generally speaking, like, Republicans, they know better than to admit they are racist. Like, they'll all deny being racist while just doing a bunch of racist shit. But if you ask them, they'll say they're not racist, right? But like, this is an example of the type of thing that the cognitive dissonance required kind of blows my mind, meaning, like, I don't know how you could support a guy who skips the funeral of this guy who was nearly killed at Selma at the age of 20 and spent his life protesting and fighting for equal rights. And the guy who skipped out on honoring his memory has also been using segregation era rhetoric to like stoke distrust of the protesters in the recent goings on, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, and rolling back fucking anti-segregation laws to appeal to white suburbia and shit like that. Like, you got one guy's doing all that shit and also turning his nose up to paying his respects to this civil rights hero. I don't know how you could be on the side of the first guy and then try to act like race isn't a part of it, or try to justify that without, you know, admitting that you're at least a little bit fucking racist. Like, what kind of argument can you make to the contrary, in my opinion?
And it's like watching like, because the move here is what you want to do is you want to like make people think about race without making them feel racist, right? So you want to talk about property values when you talk about low income housing. But yesterday he just straight up tweeted out the Democrats are trying to take away your suburban lifestyle dream or something like that, where he capitalized all the first letters in those words that stupid way that he does. And it's like, oh, you're literally telling people that low income housing is to keep brown people out. You're taking away their permission to be racist by being subtle. You're just basically saying, you're racist, vote for me, which turns a lot of people off. People don't like to think of themselves as racist. So it's very weird. It's like watching a child do like an NBA player's move. It's like, yeah, that's the move, but it's not the move. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, the thing, the low income housing in suburban, and the appeal to white suburbia, obviously, I know that it's racially charged, but in the tweet itself, he says, you know, you're not going to have to worry about low income housing anymore, right? And I feel like that's just just more proof that a huge chunk of his base is, you know, working class white people. And this is just more proof that, like, you disgust him. Like, he's grossed out by you. He hates you. You know, if you're poor, he hates you, right? And he pretty much explicitly states it. I don't know how you keep going to bat for this guy, but, you know, whatever. That's old news at this point, I guess.
Racism's a hell of a drug, man.
Yep. Yeah. So from one prominent death to another, although they're pretty different in context, Herman Cain passed away this morning from complications related to COVID-19. Herman Cain, as you remember, ran for president on the GOP side a few years back and has since become a top surrogate for Donald Trump because he's like the figurehead of Black Americans for Donald Trump, right? He makes a lot of appearances kind of on Trump's behalf, representing the Black community. So he has stayed active in that way. One of these appearances, Mark, was at Trump's infamous Tulsa rally from back in June. Herman Cain attended that, representing the Black Americans for Trump. And this is what he tweeted while he was there. There you can see Herman Cain with a group of black, I keep saying Black Americans, Black voices for Trump. He says, here's just a few of the Black voices for Trump at tonight's rally, having a fantastic time. And then a bunch of hashtags, including Trump 2020 landslide. For anybody that happens to be listening to just the audio of this, it's a picture of the Black voices for Trump at the Tulsa rally. They're all grouped together closely, taking the picture. Not a single one of them has a mask on. Now, in addition to that picture, Cain has also stated explicitly on the record before that masks are, un-American, essentially. He explicitly stated his opposition to wearing a mask. He's done all of that.
Whoever's running his Twitter account while he was on a ventilator tweeted again last night about how people shouldn't wear masks, like hours before he died. I mean, this is we're in a box here because I don't want to make fun of a man who just passed away. But like it's as our buddy Drew put it in our text thread, one of the reasons we're wearing masks is to protect the stupid. So it's like I don't want Herman to die. He's one of the world's top 10 Hermans of all time, probably. I just I don't know what to do with this information. It's just like every bit of it's sad that like somebody died for political posturing.
Okay, political posturing, right? Okay, he died. People like me, I didn't say anything about it on Twitter or anything today, but obviously I'm raising all of this shit to make a point. I mean, look, I didn't want the guy to die either. I'm not glad that he's dead, but if the circumstances of your death unfold in this manner, it's fucking gonna get pointed out. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a cautionary example,
right?
It's a morality tale, yeah,
and it should be pointed out. But anyway, you said political posturing. There have been dispatches from the right today harshly condemning the left for politicizing his death. And dude, give me a fucking break. Like, like the coronavirus hasn't been political as fuck. Y'all are the ones who made it political when you went and protested over not being able to get your fucking haircut. But B, y'all are the kings of politicizing deaths. Usually it's school children who have died when you politicize a death. But like, don't fucking come at me for politicizing someone's death when you just don't have a leg to stand on. As far as I'm concerned, I ain't trying to hear that shit.
Yeah, I think of it like when like a famous singer dies of a heroin overdose, and everyone's like, "Oh, if you need treatment, seek it out. This is this could happen to anybody." It's like stupidity is that. This disease of doing dangerous shit to own the libs is a drug, and they need help with it. And it's the whole thing is like, I don't even know how to wrap my head around it. I don't know how wearing a cloth piece of fabric over your face became the great civil rights struggle of our time. And no one's even really, they act like they're stormtroopers going around cracking heads that people aren't wearing them. The governor I haven't seen anybody punished for not wearing one. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I know that they said there are going to be fines and stuff, but I haven't read about many being issued outside of New York. It's just people saying, please wear a mask. That's it. There's no gun to your head. You're not standing up for anything by not doing it. Just being a jerk.
I think it's just as simple as like these people in general, they cannot stand to be told what they should be doing or be thinking by anyone who isn't like, one of their cult leaders. That's an important point. But like, scientists and doctors and assholes like that telling them what they should be doing, they just can't handle that shit. It infringes upon their liberty, Mark. Their freedom is threatened by such as that, and they're not going to have it.
I've been rewatching Sopranos like everybody else in America right now, and this episode I watched a couple weeks ago where Meadow is trying to drop out of college to go spend a year abroad in Europe, and she's like, "I'm 18, I can do what I want," and Carmelo's like, "Yes, we know you can do what you want. Wanting to do everything you want is the mark of a child. That's not how a responsible adult behaves. You have duties to yourself and your other people. I'm married. I can't die if I want to. I made a promise not to hang around, So it's like, it's just, it's not and it's like somebody, Americans believe in the freedom to, not the freedom from. We typically think freedom means being able to live your best life 24/7, no matter what it means to anybody else. I can ride my boat past your house at 80 miles an hour, blasting my music, shooting my gun. Right. And if you're like, "Hey, could you turn that down? My baby's sleeping," I'm a fascist or a socialist for asking you to be considerate.
Right. That's free speech. You're infringing upon their free speech.
No, I'm just asking you to be nice. That's all I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Again, I think we brought it up on here before, but it's that the title of that article that went viral on the left a while back, rightfully so, but it just sort of sums it all up where it's like, I don't know how to explain to you that you should care about other people. Like that's so much of what it seems to come down to. The arguing is like, it just essentially amounts to like, you're being an asshole is all we're saying. Like, we're not saying you don't have the freedom to do some of this shit in this country. It's just, you really ought not. Because I have the freedom to not have to put up with your fucking bullshit, and
freedom comes with responsibility. And dude, I'm old enough to remember when seatbelts became mandatory, and the way people flipped the fuck out over seatbelts, it was 10 times this for way stupider reasons. And I never understood. My dad was one of those guys like, I want to be thrown clear, and he got a colostomy bag, and he was like, he got a note from the police saying he didn't have to wear a seatbelt, and he was happy about that because he could tell the governor to go screw himself and not have to wear a seatbelt. And he never died in a car accident. He does something else, but like, so he won that argument, I guess. But it was just so weird. Just put your seatbelt on.
But either way, regardless of what they say to us about Herman Cain today, masks have been undeniably politicized in this country, irrevocably so. And as you pointed out to me in the pre-show, masks have kind of become identity politics now because a state representative from the state of Pennsylvania released a statement harshly condemning the hateful comments towards the unmasked community. State Representative Russ Diamond in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, put out a statement that said, "I feel I must personally respond to the multiple incidents of harassment and specifically hate and intolerance directed at me that have not been reported in the press but are rampant across social media and the internet. I want to emphasize that while these individuals may think they're only expressing their displeasure with me for not wearing a mask, they are in fact hurting the thousands of unmasked Pennsylvanians who suffered directly from these demonstrations of harassment. Your actions perpetuate a spirit of intolerance and discrimination against unmasked individuals, and specifically individuals like myself who are outspoken about it." So there, Mark.
Trae, I am old enough to remember when people would make fun of leftist identity politics by saying stuff like, "Oh, what are you going to call like people with red hair brunette challenged or whatever?" It's like that kind of shit. And now they're like, I don't know when the left is going to figure out this game, but the right wing just takes whatever they're doing and doubles it now.
Yeah.
Like when
this guy's on the right, so he had to bring the kids up right later in the statement. He says, "Our children are watching. They are watching what we do, and they are watching how we act. To all unmasked young people, it is okay to be you. It is okay to stand up for your rights and your freedom. Well, I'm glad somebody took a stand.
You there?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
lost you
yeah.
for a second.
Yeah. Yes.
They yeah, I mean, like, it's like the way they steal left-wing language now is so quick. Like even the word canceled was like, people were using it playfully. They took it, made it serious, and stole it. Same thing with woke. Woke was like a term people used to make fun of, like, pseudo intellectual backpack rappers or whatever, and now it's become a thing the right uses to call it. It's extremely annoying. And
Yeah.
that, like you see it all the time with like when Melania went on TV and said she was the most bullied person in the world. It's like, okay, I guess we got to bring back bullying now because they've taken that to complain about. I don't know what.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned, this guy's a state representative in Pennsylvania, which to me totally checks out because I'm from the South and I'm a liberal. So I have noticed for a long time the rampant bullshittery that tends to come from state level politicians in a lot of states, particularly in the South. Anytime some headline pops up about Tennessee, not anytime, but very often when some headline pops up about my beloved Tennessee having some new measure on the books or on the ballot, it's stuff like Tennessee's trying to make it illegal to say the word gay in public schools. Real thing that happened. Tennessee's trying to make the official state book of Tennessee the Holy Bible. Real thing that happened. Anytime something like that ever pops up, it is invariably a state level politician that's behind it. All the silliest bullshit comes from state level politicians. And we have someone here joining us tonight, a guest on the show, who's currently on the front lines of trying to push back against that because she's running for state Congress in my home state of Tennessee. And her name is Elizabeth Madera. And I hope I'm saying that right. And let's get Elizabeth in here. I want to see what she thinks about why this is and what can be done to improve upon this in the future. So here she comes. There we go. 1 second to join the audio. Elizabeth, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
I said Madeira. Is that right?
Madeira.
Madeira. I knew every single time.
I was right. I was right.
Life. Yeah, Mark said Madeira. Anyway, that's Mark. That's my co-host, Mark Agee there.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Hi.
Thanks for
Nice
joining
to meet
us. We were just talking about this state congressman in Pennsylvania who has been the first to be brave enough to stand up against the oppression of people who do not wear a mask. He had to take a stand. And that led us into talking about state level politicians and the type of shit they seem to get up to, particularly in the South. And I was just wondering, you're currently running for office in the state of Tennessee. What do you think it is that leads to this kind of, for lack of a better word, bullshit at the state level in states like our own?
Well, I think the leadership kind of starts at the top, and when conspiracy theories and is touted from the top from the president, it kind of bleeds down to other states. And when they're trying to, get favor with their very Trump supporting constituents, then they kind of just follow his lead, even when it leads to a complete mishandling of a global pandemic.
My theory on it has been they need a way to sort of get attention. Like they need some way to stand out. And when you're at that level, the best way to go about that is by doing something ridiculously incendiary and out there. It's like just taking a real hard swing for the fences. And when you play on the field that they play on, this is what that ends up looking like. What does that sound right to you, or am I just talking out of my ass?
Well, I think that it's hard to call it really extreme when it's like the whole constituency. I think part of the problem is in states where, and I would say that there would be multiple Tennessee state representatives would say something similar to what happened in Pennsylvania. But when you have a super majority, they're not able to be there's not the same level of accountability. They kind of run away with their power and think that they can do whatever they want. And that's one reason that I decided to run, because I think, first of all, we need to break the supermajority, and those people who have had power and think that they can get away with anything need to, be held accountable and not get away with everything.
Yeah. And I, for one, I'm glad you're running, because the guy you're running against is very much a shining example of the thing we are talking about right now, in my opinion, at least. His name's Glenn Casada, and he's been in the state House of Representatives for quite a while. And then last year, he was appointed the Speaker of the state House of Representatives and ended up serving the shortest term in Tennessee history as the Speaker of the House, because he was forced to step down amid scandal. And yet he is still running for re-election and is your opponent. I'm not trying to drag you into some kind of muckraking competition here, but why don't you sort of give us a brief overview of this guy and his shenanigans and why he ought not be there anymore?
Yeah, well, I will say it's been quite a while that I've not agreed with him on policy. I think several years ago, the first time I ever saw him in the news when I was paying attention was when he said that guns should be allowed in parks because they're no more dangerous than bicycles, and bicycles are allowed in parks. So there's our starting point. Yep. And then last year there was investigative journalism that turned out a whole bunch of things, including there was an FBI investigation into his pet project, which was vouchers, a voucher bill that they got passed for possible like trading favors for votes. And then there was he was actually covered on John Oliver, if anybody here is a John Oliver fan, because he also had his chief of staff had some racist texts. They were super gross and inappropriate texts about what his chief of staff was doing in the bathroom at a local hot chicken restaurant, which now makes me, I hate to have anything negative be done at a hot chicken restaurant, because
heard that.
So
state bird of Tennessee is a hot chicken.
Listen, it's every Friday night in our house.
Yeah, so, I'm jealous. I miss it.
Yeah. So I think that was part of it. There was inappropriate talking about interns on the staff. So that's pretty gross. And then actually this year it was revealed that he did not disclose about $100,000 worth of campaign expenditures. So, and then of course that was, the ethics committee could have decided to fine him up to like $2 million, but instead he got a $10,500 fine that he just paid with his PAC.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can just keep like laying it on and nothing is surprising anymore.
Right. No, you literally can just keep going. You named so many things, and you didn't mention that he also hired a political operative who was tasked with discrediting the sexual assault accusers of another Republican state representative named David Byrd, who represents my wife's hometown district. He's a pillar of the community there, was a teacher in the school for a long time. And he was having inappropriate sexual relations with students at the school. And this is a thing that was known, and he still is a representative there. And Casada hired a guy specifically just to clear that guy's name, essentially. So it's just like a web of insidious bullshit.
Oh yeah, and I forgot that his chief of staff was doing cocaine in his campaign office.
Right.
So yeah, it's like a race to the bottom.
So I'm glad somebody's, pushing back against this guy. I'm glad you're there. I do have to wonder, though, how you found it so far. You're not the first woman I've talked to who's running for office in Tennessee on the left. And I know that it could be challenging. You're in Williamson County, it covers a lot of like sort of suburbs of Nashville, kind of. Brentwood and Franklin, things like that.
Yep.
So that's like metropolitan adjacent, as opposed to out in the boonies where I'm from, where my friend Carol Abney is running for office in like Clay County, in the sticks. So I'm wondering what it's like for you running as a woman on the left there on the day-to-day basis, campaigning. How are you finding it?
Well, I'm finding I'm having a lot of Zoom conversations.
Yeah.
Not out to,
Right.
not able to like get out and about a lot.
Yeah.
But I think pretty much everybody that I've talked to like knows who I'm running against, is glad there's somebody running against him. And so, and myself, I'm a mom. I've got 3 young kids, a 2, 5, and 8-year-old. And I'm also a part-time Spanish teacher. So, I'm really talking a lot about how I'm not a career politician. It's my first time running for office. I'm doing it because I believe the community deserves a better leader who doesn't care about special interests and who cares about the community and wants to support public schools and healthcare and all kinds of things. And we were really getting a lot of positive response so far. So I know that it's an uphill climb because we're historically a red district, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. Even in 2018, Phil Bredesen, who ran for US Senate, got 40% of the vote here. So that's moving us in the right direction. And I really feel like we're the suburbs that they talk about so much, like when they're talking about all the districts that swung towards swung the House that in Congress in Washington blue this last time. So the Democrats took the House. They talk so much about the suburbs and the suburban moms and the soccer moms and stuff. And so we definitely have a lot of that in this district. So that's kind of who we're reaching out to and talking to. And, in a historically red district in a historically red state like Tennessee, it's definitely a challenge, but we're definitely getting a lot of positive reception and excitement about somebody who is a normal person. So that's exciting.
Yeah, no, that is exciting. It's great to hear that.
You read a lot about, like the guy you're running against is he's obviously a mild outlier, but you read like a story a week about some like state senator, state house dude who's just like a absolute psycho dude who's been up to some weird nonsense, and you wonder how they keep winning. And one is gerrymandering. That's obviously one, but two, like, these jobs aren't high profile, so you only want them for one or two reasons. You either want to help your neighbors and care about your community and fix schools because you're a school teacher and you got 3 kids, or you think about all the weird cocaine stuff you can get up to, where you can get $10,000 fines for paying people to harass your opponents. It's like that's fun for a certain brand of person, and these jobs really appeal to them, it seems like. And I would rather someone who care about their neighbors get these jobs, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in states like Tennessee, like there are no women, like no moms of school-aged kids or young kids in the Tennessee State House. So, and there's several of us running across the state. So there could be multiple ones of us that join the State House, but there's definitely an issue of representation in a lot of state houses because there's a whole lot of barriers set up. Like, for example, the pay is only like $24,000 a year, and you would just work January through April. And who could do that? Not very many people, right? Most people need to work all year and have a more sustainable salary than that. So, but in order to fix the system, you got to get into the system. So that's why I'm kind of stepping up and outside my comfort zone.
Well,
and
hell yeah. Fucking A. That's I don't know what else to say. No, that's great. And I'm glad to hear you're making inroads. And I'm just glad that, like I said, somebody's going up against this guy and people are fighting the good fight. And I hope that you keep doing it. So thank you for joining us on Evening Skews, Elizabeth. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And am I allowed to make a fundraising pitch to everybody?
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So I think some folks on my team have dropped the links in the chat too, but you can go to all my socials, my website. Everything is really simple. It's Elizabeth for TN. So FORTN is my first name because the last one is hard to not just pronounce, but spell. So we just have Elizabeth for TN, and it all really helps. I mean, this guy, he just paid his fees out of his PAC. He's got over $300,000 in his campaign fund. So, we have a lot of work to do to have a really robust fight against him. But I'm one of those people that when I sign up to do something, I go all in. So we're going strong, and I appreciate all the support of all of your people that have tuned in. So.
Absolutely. Right on. Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth. We appreciate it, and all the best to you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Good luck. Thanks for coming on.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. All righty. Yeah, no, it's again, I felt for a long time, and honestly, this isn't as true anymore as it used to be with Donald Trump giving all of us, all Americans, I mean, every single day, such a terrible name. But I used to really feel that, like I said, anytime all the shit that got all the play that ever caught fire in the national media landscape, that was a headline relating to any like Southern state or to Tennessee or wherever, it almost always originated from one of these motherfuckers. It's like you said, like they're like, they're a different local level representative who's a fucking psycho pops up every week. And
well, Elizabeth said, you only make $24,000 a year, so a regular person can't afford to have that job.
Right.
So the only way if you need money to stay alive, the reason to do those jobs is, the one, you're independently wealthy, or two, you're going to use that job to make money on some side angles. That's how you end up like running all these scams. So yeah. It's just like they're all used car dealers too. It's I don't know why there's so many hot tub salesmen in the Republican Party, but they seem to be dominant.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's about that time for us to go to the audience out here, see what y'all got going on. So let us know. While we're waiting on some of those to come through, quick side note, little fun fact from today: Mike Pence's motorcade had 2 separate car accidents in one day today. So that's fun. Also in Western Pennsylvania, where that same lunatic was from. Let's see. What do we got? Oh, Ace Wood says, can we talk about how the GDP decreased by 32%? It's only going to get worse. We are fucked. No lube. Right. Yeah. Yes, that's a very good point. A lot of people were saying that the whole thing with Trump in the election was just him trying to deflect from the issue with the GDP. Because, obviously the one and only thing he somewhat legitimately was able to hang his hat on for his entire term, which I don't find it legitimate at all, but still, was the economy. And the economy's fallen off a cliff with coronavirus, and the projections came out today, 32% drop in the GDP. That's horrible news for Donald Trump. And some people were speculating that actually is why where this whole election thing was coming from. I don't know if I believe that, but either way, it's really bad news, and it don't look good for him.
One, I don't know who talks about the economy in terms of GDP or when you're a regular person. Like my experience of the economy is how much money is in my bank account. Like maybe some institutional investors think about that, but like that's they're voting how they're voting anyway. Like I just don't think. Plus, it's forest and trees type stuff. Having a nice economy is great. Having a non-authoritarian government is absolutely mandatory. So I really don't think declaring himself trying to be a dictator is a distraction from a temporary downturn in the economy. it seems like you're mixing up things there. I don't know.
No, I agree with part of what you're saying, but I disagree with another part of it. Meaning, like I think the economy is actually huge for a lot of voters in the macro sense, but I think that things like statistics like that, like a headline that's like 32% drop in GDP, I don't know how much that impacts your average like day-to-day person in terms of just reading it. And I think the proof is in the lack of coverage that's even gotten. You know what I mean? Because it seems like esoteric and not even real, kind of like the stock market and everything. But I do think that people on a day-to-day basis, they can tell when the economy is genuinely doing good or when it isn't. And when it isn't, that leads to people wanting something to change or something different to happen. But things that I don't think really permeate, although they should.
I don't think people judge how the economy is going based upon the numbers they see in the newspaper about the GDP or the stock market. I think they judge it based on how many people are coming into their store and they count the register at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, all right. Stephen Harrell said, what's y'all's official prediction on the election? Do you think he will contest the results? How big of a mess will this cause with civil unrest when he claims his loss wasn't legitimate? Okay, for the first part of that, absolutely 100% guaranteed he will contest the results. He literally contested the results of the election he won. Literally.
What is
so? If he does lose, 100% he's going to contest them. And for the second part, what kind of civil unrest will that cause if he does that? That's the part of word I don't know for sure. People will be pissed off, but what I've been saying the whole time, and I don't want to jinx myself, I'm not a superstitious person, but I don't want to end up being like Herman Cain with my foot in my mouth in a grave somewhere as I get killed in some sort of fucking redneck conservative revolution. But having said all that, I think I'm not worried about their capacity to sort of take over this country. I'm just not. I don't think they have it in them to do it. I think most of them, all they do is bloviate, and far be it from me to shit on somebody for bloviating, but still, I think that's the extent of what they are capable of doing, is just screaming impotently into the void, and they're not going to really be any kind of agent of change, I don't think. So will he be pissed and talk shit? Yes. Will that amount to anything? Kind of, sort of, but ultimately not really, is what I think, because I just don't think they have it in them.
We talk about contesting. Do you mean like demanding recounts? Because that'll depend. That all depends. There are legal mechanisms for that stuff, and it depends on the vote margins. So
right.
if he loses Michigan by 13 points, I don't think he's going to be demanding a recount. And if you mean contest by vent his spleen on Twitter at 2 a.m, I think absolutely yes. But
that's what I meant. Yeah, he's gonna say to his base, this was fraudulent, like for sure.
And when they say fraudulent, they don't mean like. I mean, obviously, look, there have been stolen elections in American history. There absolutely have. There's been crooked shit. There's been people that won the popular vote, and then the House voted to give the election to other people. I'm not a historian. Somebody smarter than me can fill in the details or tell me I'm wrong. But when they say fraudulent, they mean spiritually fraudulent, like when the je ne sais quoi fraudulent. They mean like, oh, but I remember this dude was like once like, oh, but like McCain, Obama lost every group. Lost every group of minorities and women, and it's like, okay, what you're saying is he didn't win white men, so his election doesn't count, right? That's what they really think. It permeates through their whole soul that this is a white male Christian country, and anybody's vote doesn't count as much as theirs. So it's that's the way it goes.
Hobie Henniger III said, when you scream into the void, does it scream back? In my experience, no.
That's what we're doing right now, Trae. You and I are screaming into the void, and the people are screaming back. Yeah.
Buddy, it's one of my favorite pastimes. I stay screaming into the void. Deb Walsh says, I think the militarization of ICE and the Department of Homeland Security is setting us up for an armed battle over the White House. Okay. Mark, as you pointed out before on previous editions, like there's not that many of them in those agencies, that he is actively militarizing, especially compared to the actual military. And I don't think that the actual military is going to be about that. I mean, I just don't. I mean, also because here's the thing. In the scenario where that happens, where it's like an armed battle, he won't leave the White House, and there's a potential battle to get his ass out of there. That will necessarily, no matter what happens in the election, that will necessarily be happening in January around Inauguration Day. And as we talked about earlier, according to the Constitution, Inauguration Day, whether he goes along with it or not, his term ends. And this is all in a scenario where he loses. So his term ends, and either Joe Biden is now the president, or if some insanity has happened, Nancy Pelosi is now the president. But either way, he is no longer the president, meaning he is no longer the commander in chief of the armed forces. And I do not believe that the U.S. military is going to keep his ass in the White House. And even if he still has the loyalty of the Department of Homeland Security and ICE, that's nowhere near enough. In my opinion. Like, that's just not, I don't think any of that's going to happen, but I'm saying even if it came down to that, that shit ain't going to happen.
I mean, if we're inventing like a constitutional cosplay scenarios here, like there's no rule. There's no rule that says the Speaker of the House must be a congressman. So the next Congress could elect Joe Biden Speaker of the House, and he could become. It's like, and so all this is nonsense. But like, I mean, the reality is like, oh, so if he refuses to leave the White House on January 20th or whatever the date is, and DHS surrounds it with a couple thousand guys, Joe Biden would be inaugurated down the street, and they'll run the country out of his house for a little while, because they're not going to send the 10th Mountain Division in to slaughter Department of Homeland Security. It'll be like the opening credits to The Simpsons, where Maggie's got her fake steering wheel off to the side.
Yeah, right.
But a grown up sexy driving the car.
Yeah,
it'll be like that. It's like, we don't have to. It doesn't matter whether we talked about this in another show, I think, but it doesn't matter whether you're sitting in the White House or not. That's not what the power comes from. It's
exactly
who the military answers to, and they've been very strongly signaling they're not interested in getting into Republican versus Democrat politics, and they're kind of exhausted from being drawn into this stuff. So unless he managed to install some sort of loyalist Pinochet like generals all through the Department of Defense before January, I don't think that's possible.
I agree. Victoria Ann said, I'm not worried about it at all. His base is a bunch of Confederate Nazis, and we've already whipped both of their asses before, so bring it on again. Hell yeah, girl. What else can I say? I
mean, I'm not afraid the good would lose that fight, but I just don't want to have it.
Yeah, I don't want to have it either. I agree with that, but it's like I was saying, I'm not, if it came to that kind of thing, I'm sorry. I'm just genuinely, I'm not afraid of them being like his most hardcore fervent supporters that would actually be the ones on the front lines of that potential civil war, you know, like, again, I don't know. I'm not afraid of them.
Yeah. And they're definitely less of them. They're less enthusiastic than they were in, say, like January 2017 or whatever. Like, there was a moment when the alt-right and Nazis felt like they were ascendant, and it doesn't feel that way anymore. You don't see, they've taken this L, it feels like. And if he loses, I bet there will be a couple cars driving into protest crowds and maybe a couple mass shootings from QAnon people.
Yes,
but I don't think it's no sort of organized, military resistance.
I agree, and that's the thing. It's like, you got to be careful even saying shit like I was just now saying, because I agree with you. I think in that scenario, yes, there would be isolated incidents like that, and probably some people would die, and that is horrible. But if we're talking about like a full-on revolution from the Trumpers, there's no way they can't. But Lara Wiz says, just get out and vote, y'all. Quit trying to dream up weird doomsday scenarios. And I'm with her too. I agree completely. Let's see. Jessica Lynn says, anyone else still feel fairly confident that Trump's actually going to win re-election? Again, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm like struggling to even form words right now, because I always feel like I'm so gun shy over 2016, over us getting punched in the face of 2016 like we did, that I hesitate to even say this. But still, every single metric we have and have ever had in terms of predicting elections right now points to not just a defeat, but a resounding defeat of Donald Trump. And that's an objective fact. That it's an objective fact that is what the metrics look like right now. So, like, I don't know. I can't see it another way without some kind of silly bullshit that, again, I don't believe they have the capacity to execute.
We've only had 200 years worth of presidential elections. We have a small sample size of what politics actually looks like in America, right? So no one really knows anything. But I will say this: like people like military historians say that like amateurs study tactics and strategy while professionals study logistics. Like the political poli-sci version of that is like people talk about personalities and campaigns, but like fundamentals decide who wins elections. Basically, how people feel about how things are going, like what the economy looks like, whether we're in a war, right? So like 538 had this thing today where like the fundamentals predict that would predict in a rational universe, Trump will be down by 36 points. Now that's not true because we're really polarized right now, and things didn't used to be this politically polarized. But it's the people hanging on, they're still going to vote for him, are doing it for things other than material reasons, like religious, like faith. And I just don't think there are enough of those to overwhelm the rest of us.
Right, I agree with you. Yes, essentially what you just said. It like at the end of things are terrible right now, and pretty much everyone in America agrees upon that. And there is a minority percentage of people who would say that the reason things are terrible is because Trump hasn't been allowed to do enough or whatever, hasn't been given enough time. But the vast majority of people are gonna look at that and come to the conclusion that something needs to change. And
that sort of excuse making drives me crazy, because the job is the job, man. The job is working with the courts and Congress and the world as it is. No president has got to do everything he wanted to do. You either figure out a way to do it within the rules or you lose. Right. And so I don't really you want people operating in good faith. Like I thought it was unfair when McConnell decided to this stated agenda was to make Obama a one-term president, refuse to work with him on anything. I thought that was extremely bad faith and bad, unpatriotic and bad for the American people. But he tried it and it didn't work. And Obama still got a second term because Obama figured out how to be president within those parameters.
Yeah. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, who the fuck knows? We'll see what happens. But yes, I, at this point, am hopeful. What other choice do I have other than just complete nihilism? But yeah, we'll see what happens. So that we are out of time. That is it for this edition of Evening Skews. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will be back next Tuesday, August, whatever that is. And who the fuck knows what's going to happen between now and then. So we'll see y'all there.
Could be anything.
Bye.